Whether you call it a pickup truck, a ute or a bakkie, you'll likely be familiar with the PX generation Ranger. Americans may have their F-150 and its colossal sales figures in North America, but the Australians can hold their chin up high with the Ranger, which was such a smash hit worldwide success, it was released into the American market in 2019. The Ford Ranger, built on the T6 chassis, was shown to the world at the 2010 Australia Most Show in Sydney before production began in mid-2011. The Ranger was designed and engineered in Australia and went some way to proving to the world that even as the sun was setting on domestic Australian vehicle production, the country was still a serious player on the world stage of automotive engineering. Those watching in Europe and North America may know that this generation Ranger has a longer life than they've actually seen in their market. Australians, Mexicans and Brazilians were buying this generation Ranger, coded P375, back in 2012, while Europe would have to wait until 2013, and the USA wouldn't see the model until 2019. Due to this, it will be little surprise that unlike most vehicles, this generation of Ranger was selling in its highest global numbers at the very end of its life. In 2021, sales were stronger in almost every market compared to its previous years, and this was despite supply shortages and the global pandemic. The Ranger ended production with a Raptor model, something that would usually only be found on larger North American market pickup trucks, and for it to have a 4-cylinder and a diesel motor was even greater departure from other Raptors. Mapping out the life of the P375 PX Ranger shows how Ford reacted to the popularity of the model. The original design lasted until 2015, when a fairly comprehensive facelift was performed, sparking a clear uptake of interest in the model. The facelift is simply coded P375 PX Mark II, and as it became clear interest was sufficient for a USA release, a second facelift was released, coded P375 PX Mark III. There are notable differences between the USA model and the world model, notably steel front bumper, different rear lights, and lower load capacity. There are several recalls to be aware of when looking to buy a Ranger, although you should note that not all Ranger models will be affected. A recall for Rangers produced between the 1st of September 2018 and the 31st of May 2019 has been issued for failure of the rear differential. This is more likely to occur if the vehicle is regularly loaded to near its weight carrying capacity. Over 40,000 vehicles worldwide were recalled. Over 5,000 Rangers produced between 29th November 2017 and 15th of October 2019 have been recalled for a failure of the hydronic fluid pump causing gearbox failure. A software update is believed to resolve the issue. A small number of vehicles produced between the 12th of January 2021 and 17th December 2021 were recalled due to a loose bolt in the steering assembly that can allow the intermediate steering shaft to detach, compromising vehicle control. Over 65,000 Rangers worldwide were recalled due to the risk of the rear exhaust silencer or back box becoming detached. Production dates span from the 1st of December 2016 to the 28th of February 2019. We'll move on to the engine shortly, but first up are the common problems you should look out for when buying a Ford Ranger of any year and mileage. First up, it should be noticed that the rear suspension on Rangers can live a tough life if the vehicle has regularly been loaded to capacity, and so checking for any obvious fatigue cracks or weakened suspension components caused by overloading is advised. Transmission fluid leaks or premature wear of components has been reported widely, and so on test drive make sure to run through each gear with both a smooth and abrupt change of speed to make sure it responds as expected. This problem is particularly notable in the 10-speed automatic versions. After a test drive, it is worth crawling underneath and inspecting for any signs of leaks, being careful to avoid touching the exhaust or any other components that may be hot. We'll include a link below to a cheap and effective inspection torch that we use when we go to view a vehicle. Sometimes just showing up with an inspection torch tells you whether you're looking at a good or bad example, as owners trying to shift on a problem vehicle can become wide-eyed and nervous just seeing the potential buyer holding a bright light to the underside. If you sense any vibrations through the centre of the chassis, this is likely a failure of the centre bearing in the rear differential. Check front suspension struts are in good order and look straight and true to the eye. Some models have internal bump stops in the struts, and if the Ranger has been used off-road and bottomed out on the front suspension, the weight of the vehicle is planted on the strut assembly with no more travel left. If the model you are looking at has had a lift kit fitted or has been used solely on-road, then this problem is much less likely to occur. Finally, if you own a diesel Ranger that is Euro Emission 6 compliant, then a system called Selective Catalytic Reduction is fitted to help reduce NOx emissions. However, there have been several reports of this system failing and increasing the consumption of the AdBlue system that reduces emissions. Owners will usually get an engine management light warning them of the fault. Next, onto the engines, but a quick reminder that we have a podcast and a website if you want more from the miles driven. And if you enjoy our guide, then consider subscribing for more from us in the future. Although American Ranger owners will have a single engine choice of the 2.3 litre Ecoboost on this generation Ranger, the most popular engine choices across the world are the diesels, with a 2 litre, 2.2 litre and 3.2 litre all available across the production years. Starting with the diesels, first up we have the Duratorq 2.2 litre TDCi 4-cylinder that was available from launch. It was offered with a 6-speed automatic and manual transmission and 4 power outputs starting at 118 brake horsepower, going up to 123, 150 and 158 brake horsepower. Average fuel economy is 30.1 to 36.2 miles per gallon, or 9.38 to 7.8 litres per 100 kilometres. Common faults include the EGR cooler and restrictions of power either due to turbo actuator or intercooler failure. Fortunately, the Ranger has a fairly good working space when equipped with the 4-cylinder motor, so competent home mechanics should find them relatively easy to work on, reducing running costs. And note that preventative maintenance on both the 2.2 and 3.2 litre Duratorq TDCi engines is for replacement injectors. This is costly and so should be factored in when searching for a Ranger. Owner reports of failures appear to be somewhat routine as the mileage on these motors increases, but there isn't a particular mileage or age that they fail, so deciding to do them early can remove a future headache or extended downtime if you rely on your truck for work. Moving on to the 3.2 litre Duratorq motor, and you'll have 198 brake horsepower either through a 6-speed manual or automatic gearbox. Fuel economy is officially recorded between 29.7 and 31.7 miles per gallon, or 9.51 to 8.9 litres per 100 kilometres. This was a popular motor thanks to its high torque output. Areas to watch out for are again the EGR cooler failure, but on the 3.2 you should also check for any signs of coolant pipe fatigue, as they have a common issue with splits in the pipework and crank position sensor failures. The most concerning issue for the 3.2 owner though is an unprimed oil pump. The pump cannot be primed manually, and so when changing the oil it is advised to make sure the change is completed within 10 minutes of draining the oil so that the engine can be started and the oil pump primed with new oil. This is not just an advisory note. If it is left longer than 10 minutes the pump risks operating without priming, which will lead to either low or no oil pressure and catastrophic engine failure. Most specialists and Ford dealers are aware of this, but if servicing at a local garage that doesn't see this motor regularly, then it's worth mentioning. Late model Rangers from 2019 onwards had the newer 2 litre Ecoboost motor, either with a single or bi-turbo producing 168 brake horsepower as a single turbo or 209 brake horsepower as a bi-turbo. Although we will note that the power may vary slightly depending on the age and market that you are in. Fuel economy varies between 30.7 mpg and 33.6 mpg, although Raptor models are quoted at 26.7 miles per gallon for the first 2 years of production. This gives a range of 9.2 to 8.4 litres per 100 kilometres, with the Raptor at 10.58 litres per 100 kilometres. All variants are matched up to a 10-speed automatic transmission. Sticking with the transmission, Ford recalled over 20,000 vehicles for a gearbox fault in 2020. Most Rangers fitted with the 2 litre engine are either in warranty or have recently only come to the end of the manufacturer warranty period, and so common issues are harder to pinpoint due to the dealer support. We did find several reports of failed emissions equipment, along with reports of engine failures, but these appear to have been resolved under warranty. If you own a 2 litre diesel with either the single or bi-turbo and have heard of any common faults, please add them in the comments below. There are 2 petrol options offered on the Ranger, although these are market specific. At launch, a 2.5 litre engine creating 167 brake horsepower was offered and is still available in a handful of worldwide markets. These are not very common, and so our only note is that Mazda models fitted with this motor are generally considered highly reliable but underpowered in larger vehicles. Finally, the 2.3 litre Ecoboost engine was offered from 2019 and creates 270 brake horsepower with a single gearbox pairing of the 10-speed auto. Rangers fitted with this model are still quite new, and so the only reports we currently have are to check the head gasket for any signs of oil leaks and some of the first Rangers with the 2.3 litre motor reported overheating. Official MPG figures are quoted at a combined 23 miles per gallon. As ever, we've split our picks into two, with the budget option being a well-maintained 2.2 litre, as several are recording over 150,000 miles of work use with acceptable running costs. For our more expensive pick, it has to be the 2 litre Raptor model, although if you're shopping at this end of the market, it may be worth considering the new model Raptor equipped with the 3 litre Ecoboost, as this is where the Raptor really becomes the performance model it was always meant to be. If you've enjoyed our guide, then consider liking and subscribing, and until next time, happy car hunting.